Hi, and welcome to assembling this segment of Assembling God's Puzzle. As I said in my last segment, life is like a puzzle, and we have to fit all the pieces together. And the way we do that makes our lives better or worse. So these 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 videos are to hopefully help people, put some of those puzzle pieces together well, make their lives better. This segment is on difficult people. We all know we all have difficult people in our lives, and we don't know why they're there sometimes, but they're there, and we have to fit them in. Sometimes we can avoid them. Uh, Maybe they're just neighbors or acquaintances, and we can avoid them if we want, and that makes it better, maybe. But sometimes they're family members, sometimes they're in-laws, sometimes might be a boss that we can't avoid. We have to deal with, and we have to fit them into our lives in some ways. So how do we do that? What's a way to do that? Well, we'll probably never really enjoy difficult people. They probably won't be the joy of our lives when we're around them ever. And that's not the point, to make them that way. Maybe the point is make them maybe a little less irritating, or a little keep them out, make them a little less anxiety producing. There's ways we can do that, however. If we can make it a little bit better on ourselves dealing with them, well, that may be worth our while. So I kind of look at difficult people. I call them sandpaper people. We know what sandpaper does. It's a piece of paper with sand glued to it, and you rub it up against wood. And that is a very abrasive process, a very, kind of destructive process in a sense. It makes a noise that some people can't hardly stand. It sounds like fingernails scratching on the wall, and so can't even listen to it. So sandpapering is not the most pleasant process in the world, but we know what sandpaper does to wood. It makes it very smooth, makes it pleasant to the touch. It makes it so that you don't get splinters. It rubs off all the hard edges, and so then you can stain it, you can varnish it, and it becomes very nice piece of furniture maybe. So that's what sandpaper does. I call people, difficult people, sandpaper people, because I look at them as, well, they're kind of like sandpaper. They rub us the wrong way. It feels awful being around them. But why? What is the purpose? What is it? What's the process? What's happening in that sandpapering? Well, maybe if we look at it like they are helping us rub off the jagged edges of us, of our personality, of our whatever. Maybe that makes it a little bit less bad being around them. Maybe it's a way of looking at it that, maybe even look at it as God working with us, sending those people into our lives to kind of help us rub off the rough edges of ourselves and, become a little bit more smooth, a little bit more pleasant. Maybe we could look at it that way if we want. And maybe that makes those difficult people, we see them in a different light after that. But for example, a person's always late. If that's a person that's in your life that's difficult for you, you kind of complain that, oh, they're always late and it messes up my schedule. We know how that feels. But maybe if we look at it and say, well, maybe they are helping us kind of smooth out our impatience, helping us practice our patience, as another way of saying it. Maybe that helps us be a little bit more, you know, uh, look at that as a little bit more compassionate with people who are late. Maybe our need for being on time, maybe that's a little bit unrealistic, and maybe those people teach us that. Maybe that's it, helping us kind of rub off the rough edges of our impatience. Or maybe that person, the difficult person, is somebody who's just self-absorbed. Somebody just talks about themselves all the time and is just doesn't let anybody have a word in edgewise. We all know people like that. So what do you do with them? What are they doing? What are they about in our lives? Well, maybe Maybe they are kind of helping us rub off the rough edges of us wanting to be the center of attention, of us wanting to just get our 2 cents in. Maybe they're helping us learn a little bit more humility, maybe, being okay with not being the center of attention. Maybe we can look at them as that's their purpose in our lives. That's why God has sent them there. Maybe, maybe that makes them a little bit less irritating to us. Or someone who's very critical in our lives, someone who's very critical of us, and we don't like that. What do we do with them? How do we look at them a little bit differently as sandpaper people? Well, maybe they are helping us kind of look kind of objectively at our abilities, our failures, or whatever, our mistakes. Maybe they're not always right, of course, but maybe they help us kind of re-examine, okay, well, can I do better here? Or am I kind of, can I do better there? Maybe they help us kind of re-examine kind of how we're doing and put in our best effort. Maybe if we look at them that way, maybe they become something more than just people that are thrown into our lives to torture us. Maybe we can see some kind of purpose in there. And that makes it a little bit more tolerable to be around them. And we might even be able to, use them, so to speak, as ways that we become better people. Well, that's a way to look at them. That's a little bit less awful than just looking at them as people that are there to cause us pain. Now, again, there's no way to make them just the most pleasant people in the world for us. We'll probably never, really want to be wonderful about that. But maybe making them a little bit less awful to us, maybe we come out ahead on that one. Now, if you'd like to practice that, you can practice that even before you get in the next situation with a difficult person. You can kind of do that in your imagination. Think of a person like that, your experience with them, and kind of just bring up the feelings and the thoughts that being in the situation with them, what that felt like, what you were thinking, how awful that was, those feelings, bring up feelings, the thoughts, and what you thought about the person. And now, as you're kind of focusing on them, bring your attention back to yourself. Bring it to yourself and maybe ask yourself, what is it that I can practice with being around them? What are the rough edges in me that, maybe God is kind of working with that person who's a sandpaper person? What is that? Can I be a little bit more patient? Or can I be a little bit more compassionate? Or how is that calling me to kind of maybe grow in whatever virtue that is required? Bring your attention to yourself and kind of look at it that way and see if you kind of entertain those thoughts. Now you can practice that ahead of time as often as you want before you actually get into a situation with a difficult person. And practice makes perfect. So if we practice something, we get better at it. So maybe if you practice it ahead of time in your imagination or in your memory, maybe when you actually get in the situation next time with that difficult person, you're better able to kind of look at it in a little bit different way. That's a little bit less awful, a little bit less anxiety producing, a little bit less like torture, and a little bit more like another puzzle piece that you're kind of putting in place in a better place than just feeling bad about it. So, good luck with those difficult people in your life. I hope this is a little bit helpful to you, and God bless.